Today we are continuing on with part 4, cutting out your shapes. Hi again. Today I'm going to talk about gluing. Now my block here, I've started gluing some of the pieces on and I've got to finish gluing the rest. I would suggest that you cut out all of your pieces before you start gluing so that you can arrange them exactly where you want them to be before you glue, and you'll know that they are in exactly the right place. For example, I could glue this circle right here, or just slightly further away. And if I do that, this little triangle will not line up on this edge over here. So set it all up, arrange it before you start doing the glue part. When you start gluing, here are some things to think about. So you may have done this before on accident, where you cut out a shape out of paper, you glue it to your paper, and then you realize you need to color it after you've glued it. Sometimes that will cause a little bit of an issue. So let's say I'm going to glue this piece onto my block. If you are using glue in a bottle and you go around your edges like this and it's looking pretty good, maybe you put some extra in the middle, something like that. Make sure you put enough. When you stick this onto your paper, you might end up with a problem. And I'm going to show you what that problem is once I've waited for this to dry. So hold tight. All right, at this point, the glue underneath this piece is dry, so I can do a rubbing to test it out. Now the glue underneath, I went in a line around the outside of the shape, and then I did a squiggle through the inside of the shape. So when I make the rubbing, let's see what it looks like. So here is the rubbing of that shape. You can clearly see that around the outside there's a line, and in the middle there's a squiggle. This happens because if you are pressing really hard, you can actually pick up the glue that's underneath in your rubbing. If you don't want that to happen, then you want to smooth out the glue before you attach your piece. There's a few different ways you can do that. So here's my next piece that I'm going to glue down. I'm going to find some of my scrap cardboard, and I'm just going to cut a little piece of it. Now my glue, when I put it onto the shape, I can use this scrap piece right here to smooth out the glue all over the shape, like you would spread butter on toast. You'll notice that I'm doing this on the table, not on my block, because if you have leftover glue, this is going to also create a texture onto your paper. Okay, so with the smooth glue, now I can attach this piece, and we'll see what the difference there is. So let's let that dry. Another thing I want to talk about is using the glue to add texture on purpose. So on this piece right here, if I was going to glue this on, but first I wanted to add some textures to it, you could technically draw with your glue onto the surface, which will create a raised edge on your pieces when the glue is dry. But you've got to have a pretty steady hand, and I would suggest that you make thin lines. So even with me being as careful as possible, you can see that the line isn't a perfectly straight line. So here, not squeezing very hard, trying to make a nice even line. There's a squiggle in there. Let's do something fun as well. If you are drawing with the glue, then you'll want to make sure that you drag it across the surface. If you are trying to draw with the glue and you actually push across the surface, then you're going to end up with a line through the middle of your glue. So here I am pulling it across. versus pushing it. See that? And so when I'm doing this, I'm constantly moving my piece to be able to get a straight line instead of a line with a line through the middle of it. And so when this is dry, it's gonna look like this one that I already made. And now I can do a texture rubbing of this guy. Let's just attach it to my paper to be fun. Now, if you are gluing it onto your paper and you don't have any scrap chipboard, you can just use your finger. Smooth out the glue before you stick it down, and that will help to make the glue not show through on your rubbing. So let's make another rubbing. So here is my triangle-y shaped piece where I smoothed the glue out before I attached it. Yeah. Now I don't see that squiggle and I don't see that line through the middle. And here is that piece that I drew on with the glue. There we go. So the places where you see the glue is really dark and the in-betweens are kind of light because the crayon doesn't get all the way down in there. Different things you can do with glue. Some of them are things that you might want to avoid and try not to do, and some of them are things that you might want to try to do on purpose. Here's another piece that I have drawn on with glue. So you'll notice that drawing out your entire design isn't going to come out probably as awesome as you would think. It tends to be pretty flat. But if you wanted to add a little bit of drawing lines to yours, then you definitely can. For today, you will want to continue drawing out your design on your chipboard, drawing out your extra shapes on other pieces of cardboard so you can cut out all of your pieces. Think about it like a puzzle. Try to put your puzzle together before you glue your pieces down. Make sure that you trim off any pieces that ended up being too long, or make adjustments to your design as you go if you need to. And then glue after you have placed everything so that you know exactly where your pieces should be. Keep in mind that if you have a line of glue or even dots of glue on the back of your pieces, that those will show through when you make your rubbing. So you definitely may want to smooth that out with a piece of cardboard or with your finger so that you don't end up seeing that ridge. If you want to go back over the top of things and add a little bit of extra texture, then you could do that with the glue. But keep in mind that it tends to make everything else around it kind of light. We are probably going to start doing rubbings, I would guess on Thursday, since tomorrow is an early release day, which is going to be a weird day where I don't see everybody. So best of luck. Send me a message if you have any questions. Your to-do list today is the same as yesterday. Start with a base. My in-person people are using a 6x10 base. My at-home people, any of these sizes are fine. Draw your design out and then find another box, a cereal box, a Pop-Tart box, a box from whatever, and start cutting out your shapes so that you can start arranging them and gluing them on top.